don't have inflation because the people are living too well. We have inflation because the government is living too well. Get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Welcome to the Protecting Your Retirement Radio Show, right here on Talk Radio 640 WGST. Are you frustrated with the ups and downs of the stock market? Not sure how to invest your hard-earned retirement money? Each week, we'll look at the money-saving tips you need to know to have a successful retirement. Now, from the heart of Buckhead, here's your host, wealth coach, and financial advisor, David Nicholas.
Hello, Atlanta. I'm your host, David Nicholas. Excited to be here with you today. We really do. We've got a great show in store for you guys. Last week, we had quite a few calls last week, so hopefully we can keep the momentum going here on this week's show. My firm is Nicholas Wealth Management. If you want to go to our website, it's just nicholaswealth.com. nicholaswealth.com. Look, this is a financial show. We talk about money. We talk about markets. We talk about wealth management. And it's easy to sometimes forget what is the reason we have money. Because listen, we can build the greatest financial plan in the world. We can build up all this wealth. But if our perspective is in the wrong place, I don't care how much you plan, how much you build, how big your bank account or your retirement portfolio is, it'll never truly be fulfilling. So we start out each week with a verse. This week's verse comes from Romans 12:21, and I think it's really pertinent to what we see going on really across the world, even here at home. But it's a simple verse coming from Romans, and Paul says, "Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good." Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. And when we look around the world, we see evil right in front of us. We see evil being thrown right in our face. We've witnessed over the last year some horrible, horrible atrocities committed by some horrible, horrible, evil people. What this verse is saying is, it says, how do we overcome evil? Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. I was traveling in the Middle East last week, and there was a group of us that went, and we went all over. We went into Palestine. I got to peer over into Gaza with Hamas, terrorist-controlled Gaza. And we had a discussion, and there was a day that we went to the Holocaust Museum, and we witnessed these atrocities that were done by the Nazis and Hitler. And you're seeing all this evil, and we also saw how long it took for other countries to get involved. And you have to ask yourself, looking back at history, it seems so obvious. There's this evil that's going on. If you have the power to stop it, why wouldn't you stop it? I had to ask myself that question as I walked through, and I saw that America, the letter that the American representative wrote to say why we would not get involved with defeating Hitler. I saw the letter that the U.S. president wrote that said why we would not accept the Jews that were trying to flee Germany, the children that lost parents, that lost family members. And you have to ask yourself, well, if we saw such evil, why didn't we do anything sooner? And I look at that and I reflect what's happening today when we have a president and we have an administration who sees evil, sees the atrocities of Americans being beheaded, individuals being burned alive. I mean, this is stuff that we can't even conceive about here in the West. And that's the question. Are we doing enough? Dietrich Bonhoeffer was a pastor during the Nazi regime in Germany. And he was one of the very few pastors that took a stand and were bold to stand out and call evil, call Hitler what it was, evil. Because that was a time in Germany where the church was actually working with the Nazi government. So listen, just because the Pope does something, just because the Pope says something, that doesn't mean it's right. And Bonhoeffer understood that. Bonhoeffer got on the radio. He wrote publications. He spoke out against the atrocities of Hitler. And did the church listen? Well, most of the church didn't. Did the nation listen? Most of the nation of Germany didn't listen. But there's a quote, and this is a quote that I think speaks to those who say, as a Christian, or as someone that Jesus said that we should love our neighbor. So how can we love our neighbor then if we're going to go to war to stop evil? Well, here's something that Dietrich Bonhoeffer said. He said, "We are not to simply bandage the wounds of victims beneath the wheels of injustice. We are to drive a spoke into the wheel itself." I'll read that again. It says, "We are not to simply bandage the wounds of victims beneath the wheels of injustice. We are to drive a spoke into the wheel itself." And here's what Bonhoeffer's getting at. He's saying, look, as Christians, as believers, and you can say as Americans, are we just to bandage, are we just to give aid to those that have been victims of such evil? Is that what our role is in the world? Just to bandage the wounds? Or do we, as one, believers, but two, as the strongest, most powerful nation in the world, are we not to drive a spoke and stop the evil itself? Do you know what that is? When you see a neighbor that's in trouble, whatever the trouble, whatever the evil may be, when you see a neighbor in trouble and you go to stop that evil, folks, that is not committing evil. That is committing love. When our brave men and women stormed the shores of Normandy, when they put their lives, their families, their loved ones, they put that on the back burner and they risked everything. Think about this. For a nation that's thousands of miles away from the land that they know and they love, they risked everything to help a neighbor that was desperately in need. Folks, that's love. When we risk our lives to stop evil, and it really doesn't have anything to do with us, when we would be willing to lay our life down for a brother across the world, folks, that is the definition of love. So as Americans, what's our responsibility here? How many more lives need to be taken? How many more lives should be lost before we do something? Well, David, we've done airstrikes, and we've joined a coalition of Egypt and Jordan and a few other nations that are trying to put this up. Well, that's great. But the reality is, airstrikes is kind of the safe way out. And, the problem with airstrikes is you're not able to go in and extract the cancer. You're not able to go in and extract and pull out the root of the problem. Do we as Americans, are we war hungry? Do we want to send our young men and women across the globe to fight for something that's not in our backyard? Is that what we really want to do? No. But I can tell you, if we don't fight evil there where it is, history has a tendency to repeat itself. If we don't fight evil at the root and where it is, we will wake up one day and see that very evil, that very same evil that we witness, we'll see it right on our back step. And then, my friends, we're in a position where none of us would ever dream or imagine to be. Ever dream or imagine to be. See, here's the deal. Humanity is not at war with Islam. Humanity is not against Islam. But unfortunately, Islam, extremist Islam, is against humanity. And to ignore that fact, to ignore the very fact that extremist elements of the religion of Islam are against humanity, is a dereliction of intellectual responsibility. It is to separate yourself from reality. And unfortunately, we see a president that seems to agree that radical Islam is not the problem. Well, folks, I'm David Nicholas. When we get back from the break, we're going to talk about interest rates. We're going to talk about if interest rates rise, will that affect you? How will that affect you as investors, as Americans? I'm David Nicholas. Don't go anywhere. We'll see you guys right after the break.